Today we're working on some fretboards. So first fretboard we got is this one here. Now this is off this guitar, and I need to make it a 24 fretboard, and it's only 22, 21, 22. And what I originally was going to do was add a couple frets by taking another chunk of rosewood, and I don't have no rosewood. Number one and number two, after thinking about it and looking at some other rosewood fretboards that I can't use that I got on guitars, probably not going to look the greatest. Even though it's rosewood, it's not going to line up grain-wise, and some rosewood's darker, some rosewood's is lighter. So we're not going to use this on, we'll use this for another guitar maybe, but not on this one. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make a maple fretboard for this, 24 frets long. And we'll probably put some sort of dots in there, some colored dots. I'm thinking either red or some kind of blue or something like that, just to make it a little bit different. So that's going to be the first fretboard we're going to work on. The second one is the one for this one. This is off the Flying V that I'm redoing for the customer. And that one is just going to get this fretboard here. This is the original neck. I was going to pull the frets out of this one, pull this fretboard off, clean it up, and then put a truss rod in this one, glue it back on, refret it, and be good to go. Now I am going to put some binding around the sides of this first, some binding to match that peg head binding. So that'll be the second one we do. We'll take that fretboard off, get some binding on it, get ready to glue it on. The third one is this one. I already got the fretboard slotted for it, the maple fretboard, and it's 22 frets. Same design as this one, except it's not a reverse peg head. It's going to be a regular peg head going on a V-style guitar. Flying V, like an offset Flying V. And this one's going to get dots in it, and it's going to get colored dots too. So I'm going to put, I'm doing two different kinds. I'm going to do blue dots in one and red dots in the other. I'm not sure which one's getting which yet. We'll tackle that later. And then the last thing I'm going to do is make sort of an untraditional fretboard using this, maple and mahogany. So basically, I'm going to take this, cut it down to the size, the length, the width of a fretboard, sand it down, radius it, and it's going to be a maple fretboard with basically two racing stripes in it. And then I'll come back through and do something in the way of an inlay. I don't know if I'll just do dots on this one or do like a block inlay or something, I don't know yet. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on these two necks here. This neck here, or this fretboard here, is for this one. So we're going to pull the frets out of this, pull this fretboard off for this neck. And then this neck here is one that I built probably 2 years ago now. I never used it. It's been sitting around the shop. It's got a 24 fret fretboard on it. So we're going to pull this fretboard off and put it on this neck here. All we got to do is radius it, and we'll end up drilling these. These are cherry. So I end up drilling these cherry dots out so I can put my either blue or red colored dots in there. We'll add the double dot down here for the 24th fret. So pull these two off and get ready to put these two on these two necks. I got my fretboards off. The first one is the Rosewood fretboard that came off of this neck here. It's still got the frets in it, so we got to pull these frets out. We're going to sand this down. It's got like a lacquer finish on the front of the board, so we're going to sand it down to bare wood. We're going to put binding around the sides, and then we'll refret it, and it'll be ready to glue on this neck here. That's our first fretboard. The second fretboard is this one off of this neck, the maple one off of this neck. Now this one's going on that black, the black guitar that's sitting out of the camera right over there. 24 frets, and we're going to take and drill them dots out and put the colored dots in that I talked about, either red or blue, I'm not sure yet. And then we're going to put white binding around it, and then it'll be ready to glue on that neck over there. And then our third fretboard is this one here, and it really don't got nothing except the fret or the slot fret, the fret slots cut in. And we got to go ahead and drill our holes for our dots, and then put black binding around the fretboard, and then it's ready to go on that neck there. So I guess first we're going to go ahead and get these holes drilled out and get ready to put these in. We'll drill these holes out, and get ready to put some inlays in, and we'll go ahead and pull these frets off too. On my fretboard blank here, I started cutting this through the table saw, and my table saw blade is kind of dull. So I got about 3/4 of the way cut through the table saw. I ended up taking it over to the bandsaw and finishing the cut on the bandsaw. So it's cut about 1/2 inch right now, so we got to get it down to 1/4 inch. So the next thing we're going to do is take this over to my planer and plane both sides smooth, and then thickness it down to 1/4 inch. I'm back from the planer, and I got my blank planed down to 1/4 inch, smooth on both sides. So the next thing we're going to do is up on this end, we're going to draw where our nut slot's going to go. We're going to put a center line on this thing here. Then we'll come back from our nut slot and start drawing our fret slot lines in it, so we can go ahead and get our fret slots sawed into it. And then we'll come back through and also draw the 2 lines that's going to run the edge of the fretboard, which would be like 1 11/16 at the nut, and then the 24th fret would be like 2 1/4. If it's going to be 24 frets, I'll put 24 frets on it, and then whenever I decide what neck I'm going to put it on, we'll either leave it 24 or cut it back to 22 or 21. I went ahead and marked where all my frets are going to go on this fretboard. I also marked my nut slot, and I drew my center line. So the next thing we're going to do is take a router bit, an 1/8 inch router bit, and cut this nut slot out. Then we'll come back through, take this over to my miter box, take my fret saw, and go ahead and cut these fret slots into this fretboard. On this neck here and this neck here, I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and glue the fretboard on first. Install a truss rod, glue the fretboard on, then come back through, fill in the dots, radius it, and cut the binding in after the fretboard is glued on, after you put the binding on and everything. Same way with this one, I'm going to install the truss rod, which I've already done, glue this on, then come back through, route a binding channel, do my dots, and then radius the fretboard afterwards. On this one, I'm going to cut the binding first, the binding channel first, then glue it on, and then glue the binding on. So I'm just going to do them a little bit different. On this fretboard here, I need to cut the 24 slot, so I got to cut that in before I glue it on. Once I get that cut in, I'll go ahead and install my truss rod, and that'll be ready to go. This one right now is ready to go. The truss rod's already in, and I just got to glue that one in place. So I'm going to glue them 2 on and get this binding channel routed in. But that's about it for tonight. So thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in another video.